Hello, hello, everybody. Happy Monday to all of you lovely listeners. If you're on here, please get those likes up. Get those likes up, tag anybody, or share this discussion with somebody who you think. Okay, back to the mic. Back to the mic. Hey guys, can you hear me again? Sorry, my mic got cut out. Anyways, thanks for being here. Thanks for being here tonight on this Monday night. I'm going to try to keep this one rather short or succinct as I am working on getting my Black Man Built That video, my first one, out to channel members. So I am excited about that. Channel members, I know you guys have been patiently waiting. So that should drop a little later on tonight. So like I said, stay tuned. Stay tuned. And yeah, that'll be hitting. So like I said, I'm gonna try to keep this within an hour so you guys can finally see it. But I wanted to touch upon this topic because, as always, I like to interact with you guys. I like to do polls and see what's going on, see, just kind of get a pulse on things. How are people doing? How are people feeling? What's going on? So I did a poll about this maybe about a week or two ago, and I got some really interesting feedback. And I told myself I was going to try to follow up with it as soon as I had the opportunity. So here we are. Here we are. And the question of the poll, really, it was dealing with, Black women's image and whether or not it was something that Black men have destroyed, are destroying, continue to destroy. And like I said, I got a lot of feedback. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Again, hey, Game Dreamer. Thanks for being such a great moderator. Again, if you're here, get those likes up. Likes are free, y'all. Also, if you would like to show support to this channel, you can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Sharday. So I'm going to try to pull up this. I'm going to pull up this poll really briefly, just so you guys can kind of give you a quick recap, reminder of what we're talking about, and then we're going to go on from there. Because I think there's a few things that I want to try to cover off. But to try to breeze through this rather quickly. Okay, let's see if I can find it. So so this poll posted about 9 days ago. So I'm gonna pull it up for you guys so you can see it. Okay, we can go over it, and you guys can just get a sense of what people are saying. Let me pull this up. Okay, so as you can see, I asked a question. Are Black men destroying the image of Black women? And we saw the different insight. It said yes, they've been doing this century because they love Becky. No, Black men don't need our help looking bad. These sisters need Christ. SYSBM. Other comments below. I'm actually, let me do this just so you guys can see. Okay, so I'm gonna put other just because I'm logged into another account. But if we look, the overwhelming response to this was no. Black women don't need our help looking bad. That was about 72%. Again, I'm going to go briefly over some of the different feedback as I think it gives some insight into what, some of you guys were saying, what you were thinking. I see this one right here up top. It says, they definitely don't need any help destroying their image. They choose to rally around and support Black women that propagate negative stereotypes about them. A recent example is the female that got into a fight with Tommy S. I think I know they're talking about. We talked about that earlier. Here's another one. It says some Black men and some Black women have contributed to the destruction of our images. I agree with that. I see another Tisha Swirlies here. Do you ever hold Black men accountable? You are the biggest mammy I have ever encountered in all of my 22 years on this earth. So there we go. We have a detractor. Nothing surprising. Here we have, it would be closer to the truth that Black women have ruined the image of Black men. Actually, now let me see if I can sort this by the most relevant, as that tends to be. Okay, so here's one. It got a lot of likes. It says, unfortunately, most of the damage is self-inflicted. It's not only the loud, obnoxious, angry Black woman, but the fact that so many decent Black women are silent on this issue doesn't help. I know a lot of great Black women who I understand are busy living real life to concern themselves with what seems more like an internet feud amongst Black men and Black women, but perception is reality, and this reputation does and will affect Black women's lives. I think that comment right there, y'all, that comment right there was pretty, that comment was pretty powerful. Shout out. Shout out to him. Now, the reason I think that's powerful is because, I've mentioned this before myself, where in my own life, granted, this is just anecdotal experience, but it is nonetheless in my own life, I know very many lovely, lovely, beautiful Black women. I know lovely interracial couples. I know lovely non-white couples and Asian couple. Like I know a lot of people in my life who are just, they're people. People are people. People do good things. People do bad things. And so those women in particular, though, that I know, those Black married women in particular that I know who have kids, who are raising families, they're busy raising families and having kids. They're busy living their lives. They don't have the time really or the energy to be online with these online battles and disputes. And so he makes a great point. He's like, yeah, there's great women out there. There's amazing Black women out there. But the issue is that they're silent. Those who are good, maybe those who are representing something that may be more constructive for the overall community, the overall image, we don't hear from them. We don't hear from them. And so what's left, all we have is what we hear. And what do they say? That old saying goes, the hit dog hollers the most, right? It hollers the loudest. And that's what we hear. We hear a lot of butthurt people online, or we just hear a lot of angry or upset people online. Women are not excluded from that. And they, I think, to a certain extent, have taken on the narrative and are really speaking for the general collective of Black women, although that may not necessarily be the overall experience of Black women. I think it was, oh gosh, I read this a few weeks ago. I can't remember the exact source, but it basically was saying that a good 80% of tweets on Twitter are driven by, I think, like the top, like by like 10%, 10 or 15% of users, something around there. Don't don't quote me on that, but it's around those numbers, right? Where there is a small percentage of people on Twitter, for example, who are driving the overall narrative, who are really, really driving the conversations. And I think that I'm sure that idea is translated across many platforms, YouTube, the Instagrams of the world. Now there's Discourse, the Clubhouse, TikTok, like you name it. I'm sure, again, those who are really driving the conversations, it's going to be a small percentage of people. So I think why that one is so important is because, he acknowledges, yes, there are good women out there, but they're silent. It's the ones who are upset. It's the ones who are perhaps angry. Somehow their messages, their image, their life, that's what seems to be permeating, and the same can be said, for men. I've listened to different popular male channels that are like, okay. So, like I said, I think we to a certain extent, we see this on both sides, but I think especially for the women, especially for the in the Black female space, we see a particular narrative being presented that is not necessarily always helpful. So I thought he did a great way of acknowledging that. Again, if you're on here, please get those likes up, tag anybody, or share this with somebody who you think may find it interesting. We are talking about whether or not Black men are destroying the image of Black women. So again, I wanted to share that poll briefly just to give you a sense of what people said. About 72% of people who voted said no. Black women don't need help destroying their image. They don't need our help looking bad. That was 72% of people. Granted, this was 443 votes. So I in no way, shape, or form am saying this is a peer-reviewed scientific study. This is just what we figured out on YouTube. But I thought it was actually worth reviewing. Now I want to move on to the next subject that I actually think is important. And that is Chrissy. I'm sure many of you guys are familiar with Chrissy. I, for myself, am, off and on, I've been reviewing some of her content or listening to some of her content maybe over the last few months or so, just to kind of get a sense of her perspective on some of these different topics. I know she positions herself as a an advocate for dark-skinned Black women. So so I'll listen to some of her perspective on different things, different trending topics, all those kind of different stuff. Because like I said, that is supposedly her brand, that she is an advocate for dark skinned Black women. She recently posted something that I feel like is worth reviewing because it's around this idea of image and a popular idea that she promotes. I don't know if she is the originator of it, but I know she certainly promotes it, and it's essentially this idea of corrective promotion, right? Which is Black women, you know, improving their image, Black women collectively coming together and improving their image. And so she talks about that a lot, corrective promotion. And I've seen different things that she's done, maybe different ads, different clips of dark skinned Black women in examples that might be considered luxurious. So that's something that she talks about. Again, she recently posted a video in response to Tina Knowles' documentary where she was talking about the image of Black men. The reason I think this is important is because, again, we're not, right now we're talking about image, and right now we're talking about how the Black woman, now how the image of Black woman is impacted by Black men, whether or not is impacted by Black men, whether or not Black men are responsible for that. So I'm going to review really briefly her clip, and I'm going to leave you my commentary, and then after that, we're going to move real briefly into a study that I've seen, a peer-reviewed study that actually kind of breaks down from a scientific perspective this idea of Black beauty, the way Black women are portrayed in America, and really what that means. So, again, if you're on here, y'all get those likes up, tag anybody on this discussion, or share it with somebody who you think may find it interesting. Also, if you would like to show support to this channel, you can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Sade. I will be sure to try to read all Cash Apps. And let me pull this up. Let me pull this up, y'all. Let me know if you have any issues hearing the audio, because sometimes that gets tricky. But I'm gonna play briefly the audio that Chrissy did regarding let's see, the Tina Knowles docuseries and what she had to say about it. So let me know if you guys have issues hearing it as I play it back.
So in this video, I want to get my thoughts on.
Oops, let me slow it down. I got that on like. I got what did I have speed? Let me slow this down.
On Tina Knowles' new docuseries called Profile the Black Man. And I want to discuss this from an angle that I haven't heard yet on YouTube, and that's from a promotional angle, because y'all know that's what I do over here. So Trail Thomas, Tina Knowles, and OWN decided to partner up and create a documentary to attempt to debunk the negative stereotypes about Black men. And the names of the episodes are as follows: Black men are dangerous, Black men are absent fathers, Black men devalue Black women, and Black men don't cry. These are the quote-unquote myths and stereotypes that they're trying to debunk in this docuseries. So what I see this as is a fluffy, mainstream, watered-down attempt to not only convince white people not to fear Black men, but also brainwash and gaslight Black women into ignoring our reality with Black men, especially in episode 3, Black men don't devalue Black women.
So a couple of things. Like I said, I've kind of been listening to her, off and on. I don't consider myself to be an expert on her ideology, but I'm learning. When I listened to this video, there are a couple of things to me that really struck me as strange, if I'm being totally honest. So I know in this audio that we're reviewing, or this content that we're reviewing, she's essentially talking about her perspective on the docuseries Profiled. I did a previous live about that, I think maybe last week or so, where I gave my perspective on why there are so many women right now that are literally butthurt about the fact that Tina Knowles put out this documentary really trying to combat what we know to be a very negative perception that the general population has regarding Black men. I thought it was something positive. I thought this was something to celebrate, to say, hey, it's about time that we start to see Black men as humans, right? Instead of just these dangerous beasts, or these just genetically defiled things. Like, we should look at them as humans like we do any other group of people out there. So I was happy about that like we're finally starting to see things put in a different light. I have not fully seen the documentary yet. That is on my to-do list. But I've watched some of the different interviews that Tina Knowles did regarding just her ideas about it, what inspired her, etc. So I saw it as a good thing. Here she's giving her perspective and she's like, no, this is bad. This is gaslighting Black women. This is gaslighting our experience. You saying that Black men are that they don't treat us bad is gaslighting. That is causing us to deny our experience as Black women. And I think here's my main issue with that. I don't deny that there are not Black women out there who have negative experiences with Black men. That obviously happens. But the my main contention that I have with some of the different ideas that are within the female space is how we generalize things in order to push our narrative. It's one thing to say, hey, my family or even the community that I came from, maybe the area I came from was bad. I had some traumatic experiences. I had different things that hurt me. That's one thing. To go and now say the entire population or 99% of the entire Black male population in the United States of America is violent, is dangerous. You all know it, I all know it. To say that definitively and to not have any data or resources or to not have anything that substantiates such a damning claim, in my humble opinion, is very dangerous. Because again, what is behind what is the solution to something that's so damning? The solution in that point is always, okay, go divest or go marry or do whatever, which again, I have no problem with interracial marriages or dating. But if interracial marriages or dating is fueled by this notion that the community I come from is horrible, the men in my community is horrible, or the men in my community are bad, that is a dangerous premise. Because now you're looking for a savior. You're not looking for a partner. You're not looking for someone to love you whole, right? You're not looking to someone to be an asset to. You're looking for a man to save you from another ethnic group. That is dangerous. Also, if again, as women, if we seek to separate ourselves from the men in our community as Black women, we'd have to separate ourselves from ourselves. We cannot overlook the fact that as a Black woman, 50% of your DNA essentially is from a Black man. You can't overlook that. There's no way you can deny that. I don't care how much highlighters you put on. I don't care how much you try to bleach your skin or put on blonde weaves, or whatever kind of weaves or contacts. It doesn't matter. You cannot change the fact that the blood running through your bodies is partially responsible for a Black man. So that's what I'm saying. The issue to me is never a woman should have her choice. She should be able to choose what she wants to. No issues there. And there's also no issues with calling a spade a spade. We do know there's issues in the Black community. There are issues that men have to deal with. There are issues that women have to deal with. No problems there. I just have a problem with some of these generalities that I hear us as women throwing around in the female space, and not even having any substantial data to back it up. Especially because, like I said, if you're going to make a pretty bold claim like, hey, Black men are violent, or the most violent, or Black men are selling the most drugs, or Black men are the ones killing them, whatever it may be, those are pretty damning claims. Okay, we better make sure that we're coming correct, or that we're doing our due diligence, or at the very least, we are coming with some sources to support why we believe something that is pretty damning. Not just sharing narrative. And like I said, I think it's very easy for us to share narrative, but not actually give sources to back that up. And that's just my personal opinion. I think it's okay to give opinions, but when we start to try to judge an entire population or entire people group, I think that's where we have to be a little bit more, we should be more careful. Yeah, that's just my opinion. But again, if you're on here, please get those likes up, tag anybody, or share it with somebody who you think may find it interesting. Also, please show support to the show. You can find me on Cash App or Venmo Shay Sade. Also, feel free to send in any super chats. I will be sure to read all super chats. And we are talking about whether or not Black men are destroying the image of Black women. I'm quickly right now reviewing the content creator Chrissy, who she is a big promoter of corrective promotion, especially for dark-skinned Black women. So I thought that she would be important to weigh on just regarding Black women's image and just this entire idea. She recently posted a video about Black men, and image, their relationship with just image in the Black community. And I thought it would be something to weigh in as we are seeking to answer this question, whether or not Black men are responsible for the image of Black women. So I'm gonna continue now with their audio.
And I actually heard that colorism was addressed in that episode, but it was covered very poorly. And that's not surprising to me because based on the previews and the description, I know exactly what this is. What they did is bring on a bunch of Black men and Black women to defend Black men, presented the extreme minority of Black men who are either pro-Black, who have Black businesses, trying to make it seem like they represent the collective of Black men. Threw some crumbs in there for Black women, saying how much Black men love us and support us without truly getting to the heart of the issues in the Black community. And this is why nothing will ever change, because the real conversations will never go mainstream. And this may sound far-fetched, but if you ask me, this docu-series is actually a response to the current online conversation and the gender war between Black women and Black men. They're getting really scared, you guys. They see that Black women are finally starting to have standards, and we're beginning to separate ourselves from Black men. So this is an attempt to bring us back on their side, or just bring Black people together in general. And
I disagree with that. Personally, I disagree with that because that assumes what you just said, that this documentary series is in response to an online gender war that's happening online. A couple of things. That assumes a gender war hasn't been happening for the last few decades. A gender war has been happening for the last few decades, if you and I know anything about history or feminism. So I guess I just disagree with that personally, because it's like, yeah, this isn't anything new. Also, this idea that Black women have just they've been loyal all the time, and they have never, ever, sold out Black men. They've always been loyal to the Black community. They've never sold out their women. And then all of a sudden, just within the last few years, they're finally getting some gumption. They're finally getting a backbone and saying, we're tired of this abuse. That is a false narrative, because Black women essentially have had divestiture ideology since, the beginning of slavery. Daughters of the trade. How many of you guys have heard of Daughters of the Trade? I mentioned this in my previous video. It is a book that is created, right, written by different European scholars who essentially follow the lives of different women during colonialization, during the time of slavery, different African women who worked with imperialist nations to sell out their brothers and sisters into slavery. This is Daughters of the Trade. I'm not saying all African women or all Black women are responsible for slavery. I'm not saying that. But we do know that there is a very, 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 very small percentage of African peoples, men and women, who both were collaborators. Daughters of the Trade speaks to that. They speak to African women or Black women at that time who were opportunists, who were not loyal to their men, who were not loyal to their community, and who were loyal to, their lifestyle, and who were loyal to trying to get, trying to get the spoils of the trade at that time, which happened to be chattel slavery. So this idea of I'm going to divest from Blackistan, or I'm going to move away from the Black community and level up with this this person outside of my community at the expense of my community, this has been going on for hundreds of years. So that's what I'm saying. This whole narrative of just like, Black women are finally getting it. Like I said, there is historical documentation that proves just this. You have E. Franklin Frazier that wrote that book that talked about the different Black women who were mistresses of men from the KKK. This is not a new ideology. This is not new. So we can't act as if Black women have always 100% been loyal to Black women. That's not true. There's also been Black men who haven't been loyal to Black women. There's always that percentage of people within any community that sell out or who are they're about themselves. But I think it's dangerous to pretend that it's just in the last few years that Black women are just fed up and they've had enough and they're just they're going their other way, and that people are scared. It's like, first of all, no, nobody is scared if you divest. I am not trembling personally. I am not crying about the idea of you going and marrying a brat. I would encourage any woman to go and marry any person that that they like. And there's plenty of men within the manosphere that I think would support and celebrate women, right? Would celebrate women who are who are divesting. They're like, if you want to divest, please go over there. So nobody is scared about if a person decides to date or marry out. That is not striking the the heart of fear in anybody. I think just the main issue is, again, why are we promoting certain ideas, and are those ideas actually damaging to the community from whence you come from? And if they are, then that's what needs to be looked at. Shout out to DTJ Hana for the 4.99 on the super chat. I really appreciate it. I say we may ramble about Black women, but there hasn't been a platform where Black men express thoughts on women. Kevin Samuels speaks for a small group of Boom. He's the leader. I think it depends. I have seen personally. Now I don't pretend to be the expert in this, but I've seen personally. I've been invited on the two male channels that definitely have strong things to say about women. So I imagine it depends on where you go. Shout out to also Norman Henderson for the 4.99 on the super chat or the super sticker. I appreciate you guys. Again, if you're on here, get those likes up, tag anybody, or share this with somebody who you think may find it interesting. We're talking about whether or not Black men are destroying the image of Black women. We briefly went over the poll where I polled people. We had about 400 votes, and basically about 72 of the respondents said no, Black women don't need our help destroying their image. So that was their belief. Now we're going over content creator Chrissy. She recently released a video where she's giving her perspective on just corrective promotioning in general. And again, I thought this would be important to review, as she is someone who is very invested in the image of Black women, and that's something that she promotes. So we are going over her content right now, and I'll continue.
I think it'll work for the people who aren't tuned in into the real conversations, but for us online who hear what Black men say about us every day, we see this for what it is. And that's reflected in the comment section of the docuseries trailer on YouTube. Black women are not having it. And this is what happens when you ignore the real conversation that's taking place and you put that watered down mess on television instead. This docuseries is extremely tone deaf, in my opinion. I mean, even them attempting to debunk colorism is a joke, considering that they made Tina Knowles the main face of the docuseries. And don't get me wrong, I am not complaining at all. I would rather it be Tina than a dark-skinned Black woman because she is their preference. But my point is, when they say they value Black women, they're usually talking about mixed women like Tina. And aside from her being Beyonce's mother, that's likely why she's the face of this docuseries, despite there being other executive producers that are Black women. So they can't even hide their colorism as they attempt to prove that they're not colorist.
This is a common idea that I've heard, right? That, Black men are the most colorist, that they only prefer preferences, they only prefer exoticals, biracials, yada, yada, yada. I mentioned this in my The False Promise of Black Love video, Debunked, which total side note, if you guys didn't see my community post earlier, I will be doing a follow-up response to Miss Mahogany Pink, as she did respond to my video and had some interesting and just some false things to say. She had some false things to say about what I actually said in the video. So I'm just going to do another video to clarify my points. So like I said, stay tuned for that. But what I mentioned in that video was this study that is commonly used among divestors and Black women in general, which is the idea that light-skinned and biracial women have better, marriage prospects, that they are more marriageable, that they're more likely to be married, and that dark-skinned women essentially have it worse. That is something that we talked about. And I linked to that study in that video. What the study essentially shows, however, is that women under 30, Black women in particular under 30, light-skinned women under 30, they tend to have a upper hand when it comes to marriage. Past that age, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. The study goes into this in depth. But this whole colorism argument and how, preferences are allowed, preferred, and dark-skinned Black women, they're not getting married, all this kind of different stuff. There is an element of truth to it, perhaps, but again, when you really look at the different studies in the way that it is implied, it's not what they're saying. Like I said, that particular study showed light-skinned women under the age of 30 who came from two-parent households in particular, they had an upper hand. Past that, past the age of 30, colorism within dark skin or within Black women in general didn't really matter. In fact, darker skinned women after the age of 30 started to have the upper hand and tended to have more marriages. It also showed that a lighter skinned woman under the age of 30 who came from a single parent household did not have an advantage. So again, there's just all these different ideas, all these different ideas, all these different ideas to just essentially try to blame, I think, men for this colorist argument, say Black men don't want it, say Black men are this, say Black men are that. And it's just like, y'all, when we really just break these stuff down from a strictly statistical standpoint, it's just not true. That is not to say that there are not dark-skinned women out there who don't experience some pushback. They do. There is also dark-skinned Black men out there who experience pushback. But we can't start to use these ideas to start to provide in the community, because it just makes things worse. And like I said, when they're based upon a narrative, I'm talking narrative just like my story, but we don't have any sources to substantiate that claim. Again, that is where I think it can become very dangerous. Now I'm going to move on.
We're going to use a rich, privileged, mixed woman to tell Black women, most of which who are dark and brown skinned, unambiguous Black women, see, ladies, Black men do value you. They really do love you. That just shows you how out of touch all of them are. And this is not to say that she's never been treated poorly by Black men, but she's been adored and sheltered by Black men pretty much her entire life. Of course, she's going to sing their praises because she can't really relate to the typical unambiguous Black woman experience. So I expect this from Tina. And it was super cringy what she said about the media, quote unquote, portraying Jay-Z as a gangster rapper. Ma'am, your son-in-law is a gangster rapper. That is what he's wanted to be seen as for a few decades now. He doesn't want to change his image. And I also found it interesting that the second episode that's attempting to debunk that Black fathers aren't in the home, that actually contradicts what the manosphere says online. Because according to them, single mothers raise Black children on their own. And that's why the Black community is so fucked up. And I said this on my channel a long time ago about the double talk from Black men about this. 1 minute they're in the home and the next they aren't in the home. And single mothers are raising all these fucked up children all by themselves. And Black men are so fucked up because they're being raised by single mothers. That's the narrative that exists online.
So, actually, let me finish this real quick, and then I'll
see. Black men are okay with using whatever narrative suits them at the time, but they would never allow us to be contradictory like that. And it's such a shame that Black women as a collective are letting Black men get away with that double talking.
So, I'm gonna weigh in on that. Okay, so let me just explain. Let me just explain this whole single parent situation. Because I'm very familiar with this idea. So when we're talking about single parents in the household, oftentimes what happens is that the general collective of Black men are painted as the quote unquote Pookies and Railways, as the collective of men who are not paying child support, who are dusties, who are avoiding responsibility. The general collective of Black men are presented like that. We can see up to this entire point that consistent theme of Black men they're bad, they're doing this wrong, they're doing this wrong. The consistent theme up to this point in this audio is that Black men are the problem. She maybe hasn't said it directly, but she has alluded to that. And so when we're talking about single parent homes, what oftentimes is there's a pushback in, at least from what I've seen within the manosphere, is Black men saying it is not all Black men who are doing that. I've done different research on this, right? That it shows, again, across the board, all ethnic groups, a large percentage of women are procreating with a smaller group of men. That's just how women are in general. I mean, this has been proven sociologically. Like, this is not anybody making this up. It just so happened women tend to be more selective when it comes to dating and mating. And so the argument is that because there is a larger percentage of women who are procreating with a smaller percentage of men, it's those small percentage of men, right? They could be the ones who are now responsible for the single parent household, right? But if about 54% of Black men are single and childless, they're not in the conversation. That means over half of Black men, right, are not even really in the conversation when it comes to this whole single parent household. And so that oftentimes is where men are pushing back and being like, hey, we're not responsible for that because we didn't create those children. Now, when you look at who did create children, you have to look at how many of those Black men created children within the context of marriage, how many of those children created, kids within the context of, maybe they're with their partner or whatever, versus it was like a hit and quit. It was a hit and run kind of situation. So that's where you have to break it down. And once you go through that research, again, what you find is that the percentage of single motherhood is higher than the percentage of single fathers in the Black community. And so I think that's where it can get misconstrued. The common narrative is that all Black men, the majority of Black men, are broke, dusty, beta male, single fathers, single baby daddies. That's not true. A lot of Black men are not even in the conversation. And then once you get into the conversation, right, there are those Black men who they have been shown. The CDC showed this a few years ago that Black men were the most involved, right? And then once like I said, look at black men who were having children within the context of marriage, different things like that. And then when you get down to those men who are quote unquote deadbeats, who do have kids with multiple women, that is a really, 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 really small percentage of the population. So this is why if you're familiar with anything that's going on in the manosphere, you have different leaders in the manosphere who are very much pushing against the quote unquote Pookies and Ray-Rays and pushing against those guys who are creating these problems. Mr. Obsidian, he has been clear about that over and over again. And he's just like, I don't want anything to do with those kind of guys. Those guys are messing up the community. Those guys who are sleeping around and creating babies with all these Black women and not taking care of them, I don't want nothing to do with them. So it's like you have men in the manosphere who are just like, we are not them. We do not associate with them. But again, that I think needs to be the distinction. Needs to be distinction. So I wanted to weigh in on that. Again, if you're on here, get those likes up. Sorry about that. I don't know. Something happened with my audio. But anyways, y'all get those likes up. Likes are free. Also, if you would like to show support, you can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Sade. I'll also be sure to read out all Cash Apps. And right now we're reviewing briefly Chrissy, who is about corrective promotioning, especially the improving the image of Black women, specifically dark-skinned Black women. And I thought it was important to review her as we are talking about Black women's image and who is responsible for their image. So we're going to move on real briefly.
We allow Black men to get away with contradicting themselves a lot because they can't be involved and uninvolved at the same time as fathers. I mean, how does that even work? But notice how Black men online, they aren't pushing back against this documentary at all, even if it's contradictory to what a lot of them say online, because it's mostly in their favor. Black men don't push back against anything that makes them.
And like I said, again, it's actually not contradictory. What a lot of them are saying is that not all of us are Pookies and Ray-Rays, right? And then those men who are involved in their children's lives are involved, right? But as far as the single parent household, those who are going around making kids with these women, yada, 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 that is a small percentage. Those who are making kids with women, not paying child support, not involved, you know what I mean? They're an issue. That's not us. That's not everybody. Like I said, it's about 54% of Black men are single and childless. Many of them aren't even in the conversation. So no, it's not that they're lying about this, so they're double talking. You just have to say these things within context.
Look good, and that is what I want the main takeaway to be from this video. Black men as a group are not complaining about this docuseries, and they don't complain about their corrective promotion like Black women do. I saw on Instagram that Black menswear was in the documentary, and I've heard about them before. It's basically where a bunch of Black men, they put on suits and they come together, they congregate or they march or they protest around different cities in their suits to create the narrative that they have.
First of all, I just want to give a shout out to Savannah. I know she's trying to insult me, but I'm like, you know what? If my information encourages you to go to the gym, hand clap. Mission accomplished. You may not like what I have to say, but if you are encouraged to go to the gym, please do it, because more of us need to be going to gym. So I want to give a shout out to Savannah who tried to insult me by calling me Pygmisha. I actually find it a compliment. So yes, girl, go to the gym, get those planks in, get that cardio up. I think that is a great idea. Have at it, have fun. I just finished working out not too long ago, so shout out to you. Anyways, we're continuing. I'm listening to Chrissy, guys. If you're curious about who I'm reviewing, this is Chrissy. She is a big promoter of corrective promotion for Black women. She's all about the Black woman's image, and I thought it was important to review her content about something she recently shared as we are trying to uncover who is responsible for destroying the image of Black women. Are Black men doing it? What's going on here?
Their shit together, and they are not dangerous, and they are distinguished, classy Black men. And obviously, if they don't actually mobilize and create infrastructure and become what they're trying to be seen as, and become the main face of Black men as opposed to Pookie and Ray Ray, who in fact are most of them, wearing suits alone won't change how they are perceived by the larger society, i.e. white people. But they, at the very least, will fake it until they make it. And I haven't seen one video from Black men online about how this is respectability politics and how it's classist and elitist and doesn't reflect the majority of Black men.
She is completely unaware of the fact that probably over the last 6 or 7 years, there has been somewhat of a civil war within the manosphere over this particular issue. Literally, the Lapeef Network just posted a video today where Kevin Samuels was going back and forth with the gentleman over this idea of wearing suits, where Kevin Samuels is an image consultant. It's just like, look, we have got to stop. We have got to stop making excuses. Black men, like, we've got to do better. We've got to work on our image. So, you know what, actually, just to clarify this real quick, since I guess she's unaware of that, let me play that. I'm going to play that quick, really briefly, from the Lapeef Network. Because again, her argument is just like, hey, Black men are just taking this. Nobody is arguing about suits. Nobody is upset about the false promotion. No, there's no pushback. And I'm like, that is actually completely false. That's completely false. Not to mention, Mr. Obsidian just came on my platform, like a month ago, and we had this exact discussion about Black men's image and why certain ones are not wanting to wear suits and thinking that that's a bigger issue and some aren't. So I'm going to play briefly this clip from the Lapeef Network that I think completely goes against what she just said. Then we'll move on with some of the bigger points. Okay, let's see.
When I was 12, 13, 14 years old, for Easter and for Christmas, my mother and my uncles, because my father died when I was young, I got a suit. I was wearing a suit from I was 12 years old. So this thing about not everybody can wear a suit, everybody can wear a suit. You don't have to wear a suit every day of your life because may not be your craft on what you do. But every man should be able to own a black suit, a gray suit, or any other color that they might like for themselves. But you definitely must have at least 2 or 3 or 4 suits in your closet that you can go to a upscale affair if you have an invitation to go to such.
I agree with you.
It's not even an upscale.
No.
One second.
No.
Let you say no.
No, it's not even an upscale affair. See, first of all, hey everybody, how you doing?
How you doing?
You speaking Sway? How old are you? So I don't know who I'm talking to.
I'm 23.
All right. So if you went into if you went in and you were up on murder charges and you had an attorney, would you listen to his advice or would you go on what you think?
I would listen to my attorney's advice.
All right. Well, as a professional image consultant who actually gets paid to do this, everything you were saying is what's wrong with the Black male image. And I can produce any data that anyone wants with links to where young Black men have done the own work of trying to see how differently they were treated by simply just dressing male appropriate. We have been in our community. I guarantee you this. I'm 52 years old. I grew up in the projects, single parent household, government cheese. If you want to match being broke, we missed legitimate meals. This generation, no offense, but y'all ain't missing no meals. And y'all talk this, we ain't got it shit like you ain't got it. And I had suits.
So that's a quick, a brief snippet from a conversation that was posted on the Lapeef Network. Maybe I'll link to that in the description box. But so again, going back to this idea that, you know, there isn't a conversation among the manosphere within Black men about suits, about presentation. Some saying, hey, no, we have got to, not only do we need to have a better image, we need to present ourselves in a better way. We need to start taking ourselves seriously, versus those being like, no, that is not an accurate representation of who I am. That's not where I come from, yada, yada. That's a well-known debate. And he even mentions this, you know, in that video where he's like, for about the last 6-7 years, he's been dealing with that. So to Chrissy's earlier point, perhaps she's unaware, or perhaps she's just whatever it is, but that's just not true. The idea that men are not talking about this, and they're not battling over this, and they're not working this out, and they're not holding each other accountable is strictly not true. I'm going to move on now with Christy's video, guys. We are briefly reviewing her audio where she gives her perspective on Black women's image, Black men's image. And again, I think this is important as we are trying to discuss, are Black men the ones destroying the image of Black women today? I'm going to continue.
Saying that no Black men have ever pushed back against this, but I'm sure it's not many of them because we would have seen it by now. But Black women, on the other hand, we're having literal meltdowns in videos about.
So she says we haven't seen it by now. Again, the Exhibit A, the video I just played, Exhibit A of Kevin Samuels, who has over 1 million followers, pushing back to a young man in his 20s about this entire topic. I literally had Mr. Obsidian come on about a month ago, and he talked about that exact same issue, the image of Black men and what they were producing. O'Shea Duke Jackson last week came on and was telling men that he believes they need to be better at building things and providing more for their women. So it's like, that's just not true. That's just not true. No one can say that men are not having those conversations. No one can say that men are not pushing back and you know, kind of battling out over those particular topics.
Black women in luxury. See, Black men are backwards in a lot of ways, but one thing about them, they are not going to argue about their corrective promotion. It doesn't matter if it reflects reality or not. It doesn't matter if all Black men can't fit in. They know it makes them look good as a collective. It doesn't matter if it's capitalist or classist or any of that shit. They're going to accept their corrective promotion. And it's funny because things like this show you that Black men completely understand why promotion is important, even though they've been telling Black women, and especially dark-skinned Black women, for years that promotion doesn't matter. They're telling dark-skinned women to this day that corrective promotion won't work because we need to show the world better behavior instead.
Y'all, if you're on here, get those likes up. Likes are free. Likes are free. Likes are free. I don't even know where to begin. Okay, no, let me let her continue a little bit longer, and then I'll weigh in.
And that's the only way corrective promotion for dark-skinned women will work. But as we can see, that's actually not required for Black men. They can actively push for and create gangster rap promotion, misogynistic lyrics, colorist promotion, and they can still get a documentary that says, no, we're really not like that though. But the Black men and their pick-me's are online telling dark-skinned women, oh, you need to fix your image in real life before you can get better promotion. They can get a docuseries and suddenly they're the most present fathers.
Okay, I'm just like, y'all, if you're on here, get those likes up. Yes, please hit the like button. So where do I begin with this? Okay, so this whole idea, first of all, I don't think Black men are going around talking about corrective promotion. I don't know that I've ever really seen that. I think most men that, at least that I've spoken to, are actually more concerned about their results. Now, when it comes to this whole image topic, as I mentioned before, Kevin Samuels weighed in. One of the reasons he is big about men, you know, presenting themselves in real life with a better image. And again, I'm talking about real life. I'm not talking about necessarily you going on Instagram and you posting certain things. He's talking about men's day-to-day experience. One of the reasons they're promoting presenting yourself better is so that you can ultimately have better business, you know, actual monetary career results. So I've heard that discussion, but I am not familiar with any corrective promotion marketing campaign that Black men in particular have put together. Now, I know she's using this one scenario to kind of paint that narrative. of yeah, Black men, they always accept their corrective promotion, but I'm just like, y'all, when in the history of America have Black men consistently been positively promoted? Please let me know. Please inform me of this campaign, of this push, of this time, because I cannot think of one time where that has been the case. I think I'm certainly aware of the multiple times Black men have been presented as a perpetrator. That's kind of the history of this nation, and that's kind of how, if we think of Birth of a Nation, that was played in the White House, right? If we think of just history itself, we all know Color Purple. We think of the whole false promise of Black love that literally kind of talks about the way, Black men were evil and all these little different things. I guess I'm trying to think of a time where Black men, and when Black men have consistently been portrayed as great and as good and as lovely and valuable, while women are complaining about the fact that they're gangster rappers like Jay-Z, and they're misogynist, and as while they're using rappers as examples of the way that Black men disparage Black women. Like I I'm just, I guess I get a little bit confused, because I'm like, again, I cannot think of a time where men, Black men in particular, have just been like on the pedestal of like, oh yes, they're so great, they're this and that. That was kind of the very thing that actually encouraged Tina Knowles to do the documentary, because she saw quite the opposite. So I don't understand that point. It doesn't make any sense for me. Yeah, you said MLK was vilified. Of course, yes, MLK was vilified. Martin Luther King, yes. We all know cops. What was that we saw growing up? Cops, and you would see all the time those Black men, primarily, getting cuffed up, getting put on the floor, thrown in the car. Like, I mean, I'm like, what are we even talking about? Like, is this for real? Okay, so I guess I'm trying to understand her point. That's why I'm like, where do I begin? But maybe I'm gonna continue listening in on this and see if I get some more perspective.
Value Black women. They're not colorist. They aren't dangerous. Black women don't have that luxury, and that's why Black women, and especially dark-skinned Black women on this side, that's why we're rolling our eyes at this docuseries. It's not as simple as quote unquote having penis envy. The problem is that what y'all tell us we have to do for positive promotion and a better image versus what y'all tell Black men they have to do is totally different. And
okay, so like I said, that's a lie. That's a lie, because the amount of men that I personally know and within Manosphere that I've listened to who are consistently calling Black men to the carpet. We just listened to a snippet a few minutes ago. In there, Kevin Samuel said he literally was just like, Black men love to complain about why they don't have good results. He said that for like, something similar, but he was like, we can find so many videos where Kevin Samuels is holding men to the carpet and saying, you need to do better. Like I said, I literally just had O'Shea Duke Jackson come on a week ago, agree with him or disagree with him. And he literally said, you men need to do better. You talk about Obsidian. He's one of the founding fathers of the Black Manosphere. He literally has so many different podcasts where he's like, you men need to do better. You need to provide. So it's like, that's not true. There are plenty of men out there who are holding the line and being like, no, these are the standards. So that's just not true. I will say this as a marketer, as somebody who actually worked in different businesses, who worked in marketing departments, who put together marketing and promotional campaigns. I will say this. When you're a marketer, right? When you are helping to create any kind of promotional campaign for a company, one of the things you want to do is you want to make sure that whatever it is that you are promoting, whatever product it is that you're promoting, that is a good product. That is a good product, because the purpose of marketing is to get the information, in front of the right audience. But if you sell a product, right, or if you promote a product in a way that it is not, if that person purchases the item, if they purchase what you sold and they find out that the item does not match with what you said, if they find out that it is defective, if they find out that they bought, A, B, and C, but instead they got X, Y, and Z, it's now considered false advertising. So whatever it is that you promote or whatever it is you advertise, you want to make sure that the things that you are advertising are based upon the real attributes of that product. That's really important. You don't want to do false advertising. So here's the thing. I have no issue. I would love to see Black women presented in a better light. I would love to see us all shades, all tones, represented in ways that I think were respectable and honest and trustworthy and moral. Like I would love to see that. Absolutely. The reason I think there's some of us out here, me included, who would say, hey, women of color, I think instead of us focusing on having a better image per se, or having more Instagram ads where you show us drinking a glass of wine on a beach, I think we would be better off actually having better results in our life, because actual results will produce actual, I guess, better promotion, for lack of a better term. Like I said, if you are, let's say you want to, I don't know, let's say you want to present an image that you live in $1 million home. It's going to be easier for you to do that if you actually end up moving into a gated community where there's $1 million homes. If you don't actually do that, you're going to have to try to figure out, okay, how do I get into the gated community? Do I have to get forms signed? Do I have to try to like plan a particular day? Like you're going to have to go through all these different loops to try to present that image, right? That's not your real life experience. And it will be so much easier for you to present that image if that's actually your real life. So I think it is a bad idea for us as women to try to promote an image that we're not. If the reality is, if we're trying to promote ourselves as Black women and say, hey, we want to do better, we want to promote a better image of ourselves, but the reality is a majority of us are overweight, right? Or majority of us are maybe unhealthy, or many of us have kids out of wedlock, or whatever it may be. If that is a reality, then I think it's better for us to address the reality of where we are at and try to work on getting better results versus just working on our appearance. Because like I said, or not appearance as far as like how we look, but I mean, focusing on how we're marketed. How we're marketed to the other world has zero impact on our actual day-to-day experience. It has zero impact. If I go online and I see Instagram feed of a dark-skinned woman with, I don't know, with box braids on a beach drinking a glass of wine, it's like, great. I see a dark-skinned woman with box braids on a beach drinking a glass of wine. How does it impact my experience? It doesn't. It's a cute ad. But like I said, I think what would be better is if actually maybe having honest conversations about what is happening in our life, what is impacting us in our life, and then how do we move forward from there. So that's this. I'm all for Black women being presented in a better light. I'm all for it. But I think when we think of promotion, better promotion for Black women and better promotion for Black women or men, I think the promotion needs to actually be reflective of our experience, reflective of what's actually happening in our life. Otherwise, it becomes false advertisement. And I say this as somebody who worked in the marketing department for years. Okay, so I'm going to move on and then.
Black men get all of this context when it comes to their condition as well. And Black women, we get very little. It's extremely lopsided, and that is the problem. And that's why when the Black feminists say that Black people online shouldn't be blaming each other for structural problems, they fail to mention that Black men as a collective, they do not and will not ever apply that logic for Black women. So if Black women were to solely focus on structural problems, it would be completely one-sided. We'd be blaming the system for everything that they do, and they would just be blaming us for everything. That's why for me, I refuse. I'm not going to give you all of this context if you're not going to give it to me. Black women, for the most part, are the only ones being preached at about taking personal accountability and personal responsibility.
Like I said, that's just not true. Anybody who's listened to any length of content within the manosphere, at the very least, just knows that that's simply not true.
This is why I don't know how Black men online can continue to create the false narrative that the Black community has only uplifted Black women, when Black women especially are always talking about how wonderful Black men are.
Okay, can you guys in the comments tell me the amount of times you have been overwhelmed with the channels and shows and medias from Black women who have consistently praised Black men? I personally, and I'll be honest, as a Black woman, I can't think of a time where I always saw a Black woman praising their Black men. I can't think of like shows out there. I'm trying to think of movies. I cannot think of a time that I can think of the time that was the case. Also, real quick, shout out to Hakeem for the 5 on the super chat. I want to make sure I don't forget you. I appreciate you. I see Savannah. This one is for you. I hope she's enjoying her time at the gym. I really do. Like I said, if my content can inspire people to go to the gym, mission accomplished. Even if you hate me on the way there, listen. I don't care if that means that you're going to be less inclined to die of heart disease, which is something that actually impacts Black women is a lot more than any other thing we talk about, more than homicide, more than DV, interpersonal violence. It's like our heart disease and health related problems. If my content can inspire you to go to the gym, hats off, hand claps to me and to all of that. But again, this idea that Black women have been always praising, but I'm just like, in what universe do you live in? Because I mean, this same talking points has been going on literally since feminism. Feminism has been around however many decades? So at least since then. And as I mentioned, the divester ideology of I'm going to divest from the Black community, Blackistan, goes back as deep as the Daughters of the Trade, which is something that I'll eventually maybe touch on in more in depth. But like I said, I personally cannot think in a time where, culturally speaking, in the Black culture, it was like, oh, the Black man can do no wrong. He is God. We praise him. Never. I can think of like the Medea, right? I can think of like the Big Mama who was like always. If we think of Chitlin circuits, right? We think of those different movies we've seen. We think of just even our family, like Big Mama, terms like Big Mama. We didn't really hear like Big Daddy like that. Like Big Mama, she was the one that everybody was around. She was the one that everybody was caring about. She was the one that everybody was looking up to. So it's like, again, this valorization of Black men at the expense of Black women, I just don't see it. I just don't see it. I at least in my life, I can't think to it. And like I said, if we also look at literal history itself, it speaks to something quite different. I'm going to try to wrap this up. I'm going to try to wrap this up here because I had another study I wanted to review, and this is getting kind of long.
They're always putting their plight ahead of ours. Black women especially are constantly screaming to the world how much they love and adore Black men.
Who is doing that? Please help me, because anytime a Black woman goes and shares any kind of shares that she don't even have to say she loves a Black woman. She can just be like, oh yeah, Black women are humans. And then now you are like the devil incarnate. Literally. That's how I got termed Pick Misha. Because I'm like, yeah, Black women are humans too. And then that's when I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to actually start going down this road. I'm going to actually start talking about some of the different positive things that we do see Black men doing. And a part of that, I have had Black men different men who come on and be like, no, Black men need to do this. Black men need to be held accountable for that. So it's like, this is not a Black men are all perfect channel, but it's like, the reason I even start doing that was because I saw there was just so much negative content out there. You can get so much money by telling the opposite. I could get so much more money if I just lied all the time and I just started spewing all the hatred that is making money right now. So I'm like, who is doing that? Like, who is doing that? Where, like, please, is there like a different portal or universe that I am completely unaware of? Because in the reality that I live in, this has been a gynocentric society. I mean, feminism it won in a lot of senses, to where the way media is portrayed, the way women are handled, the way Black women are handled. It's like, what are you even talking about?
That's why this documentary was able to exist. And I mean, we can see this reflected online as well. Look at the amount of Black male pick-me channels are online. A new one pops up every day. And speaking of the pick-me's, when it comes to them responding to the pushback of this docuseries, I think it's extremely irresponsible for Black men and their pick-me's online to try to minimize the Black femicide data when Black women are getting killed at a higher rate than everybody. It doesn't matter that it's 2,000 Black women a year out of millions. What matters is that it's happening to us at a higher rate. What matters is that 60% of Black women are abused by the age of 18. What matters is that over 60,000 Black women and girls are missing. And then when you get into the misogyny and the colorism, it makes it even worse. And so you can't tell a group of women who are most at risk of something not to worry just because it's only 2,000 Black women out of millions. That's not how it works. And that's like us telling Black men that because only 100 of them, or however many it is, out of the millions that get killed by the police every year, that it's insignificant. No, what matters to them is that they are more likely to be targeted by the police than anyone else. But the fact that Black men can't give us that context and they don't see it that way for us, it goes to show you that they don't as a collective care, but we're always expected to add context for them. And the problem is not that they are attempting to correct their image in this documentary. The problem is that we don't get this kind of support in return when it comes to our promotion.
Okay, so a lot of things. So those are just blatant lies. Let's just start there. I've already broke this down in previous videos about, she said Black women, I think, are the most likely to be killed. They have the highest rates of homicide. That's not true. We already talked about this. We looked at the FBI stats and we figured out that when we look at those numbers, those FBI stats are looking at arrests. They're not looking at convictions. 1/3 also of those arrests, or just of those whole cases, we don't know the ethnicity of the perpetrator. 1/3 of those murders involved are unsolved. And so a lot of the numbers that are used to kind of promote this idea that like every 5 hours Black women are being killed, yada yada, you can't come to that conclusion when you see that there's all those variables that are not there. Also, when we looked at the CDC, we broke this down to the CDC. We saw that homicide didn't even make it in the top 10 for Black women in particular. Wasn't even the top 10. For Black men, it made it within the top 5. I think it was actually specifically number 4. Now, why is this important? Again, it is incredibly important, I think, that we handle each and every case of homicide respectfully. I am not saying that homicide is not a big deal. I am not saying that those families, the perpetrators shouldn't be handled with justice, that the victims shouldn't be handled with care. They absolutely and totally should. I'm all for that. What I'm not for, though, again, is spreading what I believe to be propaganda or taking things out of context or promoting a narrative that, again, at the end of the day, leads to this one thing: blame Black men. Blame Black men. That is the narrative that everything always filters back to this idea of blame Black men. That is pretty much the ideology of all of these arguments. The arguments of Black men aren't good dads. If they are dads, they create all these single parents. Black men are the most violent. Black men are, they are bad. They have a false image and they're okay having a false image. They like Becky. Everything always kind of circles back to this overall theme of Black men are bad and therefore that's destructive. That's what I have a problem with. No problem with you dating interracially, you marrying interracially. Have fun, good luck. It's harder for you to do it in this context, but if you can do it safe. But don't do it while promoting lies. As I mentioned before, when we try to promote homicide or Black femicide as an issue that impacts women, when in reality it impacts men more, it is no longer a female issue. It is an issue of the community. Perhaps it is an issue of class. There is a different study that I sourced in my other context that showed that, hey, again, a lot of these homicides that we talk about are more closely linked to class and socioeconomic situations. When you control for class, when you control for wealth, homicides within just the Black community in general among Black women, the numbers completely change. The numbers completely change. So a lot of this, again, has more to do with class, has more to do with socioeconomic status, has more to do with age. The Black women who are most at risk are the Black women between the ages of 0 to 19. Their homicide rates were the highest. And again, like I said, this changes when you control for class, when you control for socioeconomic surroundings. But based upon those reports, I shared this in my previous video. And you guys, I am going to do a pre-record of this, so just stay tuned, because I think it's important that I touch upon this in a way that is succinct. But again, if we really want to talk about who's the most at risk, it's younger women between the ages of 0 to 19. A lot of these women on here who have channels who are deep into their 40s, right, living in the middle class area, they ain't got to worry about Tyrone next door shooting them in the face. They more likely have to worry about what they're eating and whether or not they have a healthy lifestyle that's going to, keep them, or if they're going to be at risk for being pre-diabetic, having heart disease, having high cholesterol, things that are affecting their health. They are more at risk for that. They are more at risk for health-related diseases than they are being shot in the face by Tyrone. These are the kind of things we don't want to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about weight in this community. Nobody wants to talk about the way we are harming ourselves as women by not taking our bodies seriously. So again, That is the issue. That is the issue. That is not to minimize homicide. No one is saying that homicide is not a big deal. It is, but it has to be within context. And we cannot create this as a black female issue when black men are getting killed more. It just, if you don't believe me, look at the CDC. And like I said, I'm gonna do another pre-record about this. I think because I want to pull together all the data sources so that you can actually see what I'm saying. So we're not just, this isn't a fifis or feelings conversation, because homicide is, it's a very touchy subject, and I don't think it should be taken lightly, and I don't think it should be taken nonchalantly. And this is also why I think it's important that we be honest and clear about what is actually going on, because it is such a serious subject. But I'm going to continue. Also, guys, if you're on here, get those likes up, please. Please send in some support. If you want to find me on Cash App or Venmo, you can do so. Shay Sade. Let me see. To go in for my. Also, you can send in super chats. I will be sure to read all super chats. I'm going to try to wrap this up soon. Okay, let me do this because I wanted to go through this study. And like I said, I have to go edit this Black Men Built That video that I'm going to be sharing with the community tab. Okay, that's enough for that video. Basically you look through it. She's talking about the black, she's talking about the image of black women in comparison to black men. And essentially what she says, if you kind of wrap it up, is listen, black men, they are okay with their image being promoted. They are, doing all these things. They're not having better results, but they're okay being presented as if they're having better results, but they're mad at us for doing so. That's that's a key tenet of her argument. As I mentioned there, I disagree with many of the claims. And I think more importantly, black women or black men, whoever it may be, I think it's more important to actually work on having better results, and then the promotion will follow. What I don't like and what I think is dangerous, again, is anytime we start to fuel this gender war. What I heard in that audio or in that video is just an incessant need and a continual need to just point the finger at black men. That's just what I saw. And that's not to say that there aren't things that black men can improve on. They certainly are. But I think that fuels a gender war. And here's my thing. When we're speaking about our image, ladies, when we are speaking about our image, when we are speaking about the way that the world sees us, the way the world actually portrays or sees us being portrayed, the way other cultures see us, whatever, we are shooting ourselves in the foot when we have the reputation of not knowing how to get along with our men. We are shooting ourselves in the foot. We are making ourselves look disagreeable. We are making ourselves look hard to deal with. We are making ourselves look unmarriageable when we do not have the reputation of knowing how to get along with the men who share our complexion. That is destroying our image. That is destroying our image. I am not saying whatsoever that we cannot, as black women, have times or where we share our traumatic experiences, where we talk about the different ways that we maybe have experienced abuse from men, or we've talked about the different ways we've been hurt from men, whether it's uncles or fathers or cousins or brothers. There needs to be a place for that. But like I said, doing that in a healthy, constructive way is different than now creating a brand and creating a movement that creates division between the men who share your complexion. Because again, if we as a woman garner the reputation of not being agreeable and not knowing how to get along with the men who share a complexion, how do we think that men outside of the community are going to receive us? If we can't even get along within our own community, do you think that these men are going to have open arms knowing that you're looking at them as their savior? What guy out there wants a liability? At that point, you become a liability. That is a bad image. That is destroying our image. Us continuing to have platforms and continuing to support and give accolades, right? And fund these different narratives that essentially create more and more division between our community. That is destroying our image. That is, because like I said, if you're now going to another community, trying to marry in that community, they're seeing you as a liability. Now, here's the thing. To be fair, Chrissy, I know she said this, I think recently, maybe it was like a last video or 2 videos ago. She said that she's not trying to get married and she's polyamorous. So technically, based upon her, if that's what she's doing, if she is, not for marriage, she doesn't want to get married, and she is just about kind of exploring her options and just, having different sexual partners, then technically for her, she can disparage whatever man she wants. This is not really going to affect her as far as marriage is concerned because she's not trying to get married. But for you Black women out there who actually do want to get married, especially if you want to, get married interracially, you have got to know that the way that you treat other men in the community, way that you look at you, men are looking at that. Shout out to Marco Polo with the 10 on their $9.99 on the super chat. It says, "Hey Shay, hey Marco Polo, I appreciate you. Also, shout out to Awa with the $9.99 on the super chat. I appreciate it. I see. This is why Americans will never get Medicare for all. Open and equal access to mental health care within the gender war, and they can't have that. You know what? I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think many of us are hurt emotionally. I mean, when we listen to some of this stuff and they're just like, oh, black men don't take care of their daughters. Black men don't take care of their kids. Black men don't ever pay for stuff. Kind of and then it's like, y'all know it. What's happening is when we're having these conversations, it's like we're telling on ourselves. If every single moment you have an opportunity to talk about black men, you're saying something negative, you're partially telling yourself, you're saying, okay, you've only had negative experiences with black men. You've only had negative experiences with black men. You have only had negative experiences with black men. And I think my personal opinion is I think that's something worth being explored. I don't think that's the reason to now go completely demonize an entire people group. I think it's healthier to maybe explore that and say, okay, well, why? Was it just because of, proximity? Was it because I was choosing wrong? Was it because of my family? Whatever. But I think that's something that you should explore versus coming to the conclusion that everybody that looks at me is bad. Every man that looks like me is bad. Because that's what that basically means. And like I said, there's no way you can look in the mirror and know that 50% of your genetic makeup is made from men that you hate. You are made up of men that you hate. 50% of the blood running through all of that is coming from a people group of men that you hate. How can you look in the mirror and have a strong self-esteem and hold on to that ideology? It does not make sense to me. So I think that's enough for that. And I'm gonna have to try to briefly run through this because that was a little longer than I thought. But let me see. Oh, you know what? Actually, do this also too. So going back to what I was saying earlier, you guys, one of the things that hurts our image, y'all, is that when we have the reputation of not necessarily knowing how to get along with our men, that is actually something that is destroying our image. I want to actually bring up something that I posted a few days ago also that I think is pretty relevant. Now, y'all, this isn't like a study. This is not a study, right? But this is just, men sharing their honest perspective on their interactions with black women. This is white men sharing their perspective about black women. And this got a lot of views and I got a lot of tweets, but I thought it was interesting because, like I said, this speaks, I think this kind of gives insight into the way that men think. I've heard men say it, and for whatever reason, sometimes what men think and what men are saying doesn't necessarily, women don't always care about. I don't think women always care about what men think. It is what it is. But nevertheless, this is important. Okay, so here is this white guy, Anomaly. And he says, so many black female activists want to force you to pick black people for jobs and positions, but they didn't even pick a black person for the most important position in their lives, their husband. Isn't that kind of weird? Here's another one. It says, just FYI, I've dated a lot of black women, and I can say this. The amount of deep-seated hatred some black women have for black men is astounding. 2, all the black women I've dated in one way or another tone down their blackness for me. So like I said, these are just just two random men. It's not a study here. This is not, it's just two men sharing their perspective. But I think this does give insight into the way men think. And why do I say that is because I've literally had men say this. I've literally had men go and say, hey, you don't understand what men are saying behind closed doors. You don't understand the way men actually locker room talk, what they're doing when no one's there. I mean, we're starting to get a little bit of insight into what the manosphere, but you have to know the way men think. And again, men are thinking if you have the reputation of being disagreeable, that's not really good. That's not good, and that's making you look bad. And like I said, I think this is something we as women don't necessarily understand, how when we are so open, and not only we open, we promote and we celebrate denigrating and completely bashing the men from our community, we don't understand how that hurts us. And it does hurt us. It really, 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 really does. It really does. And like I said, I think that is a pretty big issue. And that, in my humble opinion, is one of the many things that I think is hurting the image of Black women. I think that reputation that we have of we cannot get along with our men. I'm not saying that our men are perfect. And I'm not saying that the things that they don't have to work on. They obviously do. But there's a more constructive way, and there's healthier ways to deal with it that doesn't include completely clumping an entire people group into the category of bad. And that is what we as Black women have done. We have to admit it. Many of us have done it. We make money off of this. There are women online today who I don't believe completely believe this ideology. Maybe they don't completely believe that all Black men are horrible, but they do it because they know it makes money. That is hurting us. Now, like I said, if you're gonna be like Chrissy and just kind of just be polyamorous and not marry, maybe that's different. But most Black women out there do not want to do that. Most women today do really want marriage. They really do want to settle down and be hypergamous. That's what most women want. And like I said, you can't even talk about marrying, let alone being hypergamous, if you can't even learn how to get along with the people around you. It just ain't gonna happen. Shout out to Yardley Moses for the 10 on the super chat. I appreciate it. Oops, not wrong one. I see. I love and only date Black women, but decent Black men don't force Black women to twerk, wear crazy weave, and have kids with Pookie Rere. B2Y, I'm all for Black men and Black women to work together. Peace. Yeah, I am too. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I honestly believe, Black men out there, especially those who really do prefer and would love to marry a Black woman, which many of them are out there. Most of them don't have issues with divestors. They're like, actually, you know what? Can you please divest? They're more like, can you actually please divest? Can you get your name out of our mouth? Can you stop talking about us and just go divest already? Like, yeah, go to Brad. Go over there. Like, fine. They would support that. They would support that. The issue, I think the main issue is like, well, why aren't we actually doing it? Why isn't that actually happening? Why is there all this talk and there's all this fluff and there's all this smoke, but it's not happening. And not only is it not happening, we continue to be the fall guy. That's, I think, what most men care about. I think most men are just like, listen, marry who you want, just please get your name out of our mouths. That's it. That's all we ask for. Go do what you want to do. Okay, go wherever you want to go, but just please stop lying about us. I think that's what a lot of them that's what they care about. So, okay, so I'm gonna move on real quickly. Like I said, I've been talking about this. I actually really do need to go and edit this video, y'all. But I wanted to at least run through this real quickly. I said, shout out to Black in Effect. You said, read my previous comment, please. Okay, I don't even know what your comment is. Oh, okay, sorry. This is Mr. Z Black in Effect. This is Shay Sade. I've said already, Black women are absolutely clueless to what these non-Black men think about Black women. Black women romanticize what they think non-Black men think about Black women. Delusional. So I think, you know what, that is a perfect segue into what I'm going to now review. So I reviewed this article a while back, and then it was sent to me again from a follower. And I thought this was important because what this particular study does is it looks at the way Black women are perceived. Looks at the way Black women are perceived, in particular by white men. And so I thought this was going to be an important study to review as we seek to uncover this narrative. Are Black men the one destroying the image of Black women? And what some of the different insight that I gained from the study, I think really helped shed a light onto some of the different tropes that we see being perpetuated over and over again and where they actually come from. So this is something that I do want to support. Also, shout out, I did see some cash apps come through. So I appreciate you, Bed Study Ron, for the 10 on the super chat. No, sorry, for the 5. Sorry about that. For the 5 super chat. I appreciate you. I really do. I really do. You know what? Also, really quick, because actually, let me do this really quick. I did have okay, Albert Rogan for the 10. I appreciate you also. Much appreciated. Also shout out to Hakeem for the $12.50 on the Cash App. I did not see that come through. I appreciate you. Also, Freedman's Journal, it says for the content that was sent in a few days ago, but I wanted to make sure I called it out. Also for Quincy for sending this in earlier this week. I appreciate you for the 10 on the Cash App. I really do. And again, I see a $10 from Jesse that came in last week, but nevertheless, I want to make sure I acknowledge it. Guys, I appreciate all of you guys. Really, I do. So we're gonna go over this briefly, and then guys, pray for me that I'm able to edit this video. Like I said, for the channel members, I have the Black Men video, Black Men building videos dropping today, so I need to go and finish that. So let's hope I can get that out pretty fast. But before I do so, let me review this. So it says, okay, a body that does not compare how white men define Black female beauty in the era of color blindness. Now, granted, this was released about 10 years ago, but it's still pretty relevant today. Because, like I said, it generally takes a long time for trends to take. It doesn't just like happen over like a couple of months. It usually takes years, if not decades, for trends that affect entire populations to really take off. So, like I said, I think this is pretty relevant today. And again, this seeks to understand how white men generally are viewing Black female beauty in the era of colorblindness. So here's a quote at the top. It says, just the term Black woman conjures up thoughts of an overweight, dark-skinned, loud, poorly educated person with gold teeth yelling at somebody in public. I hope that doesn't make me racist, but honestly, that's the first thing I think of. Lee, middle-class white male in his 30s from Florida. So let's go a little bit deep into the study. It says, in this quote, Lee provides a highly racialized, gendered, and classed view of Black woman. Lee is a middle-class white man with no Black female friends, rare interactions with Black families growing up, and who states his interactions with Black women only consist of work-related experiences. Yet he expresses strong negative views of Black women as unattractive and uneducated at the first thoughts that come to his mind. This quote by Lee and several other white male respondents in this essay dispute notions that only a few highly identifiable old Deep South bigots hold strong, deep-seated racialized views of Black women. These expressions by white male respondents are indicative of the consistent exclusion of Black women, the consistent exclusion of Black women as relationship partners by white men, and representative of a powerful mental processing at play that goes beyond the limited language of stereotype. Whew, that's a deep one. So, like I said, in this particular study, we are seeing that this study kind of starts to explore that this idea of white men excluding Black women is not necessarily as we want to believe. It's still deep-seated, and it's still something that maybe more than it's more prevalent than what we want to believe, contrary to kind of this popular notion. And I think that's what this study delves into. But we'll continue on. It says, census data reveals that Black women have the lowest interracial marriage rate of all women except white women. I've already discussed this. And the interracial marriage of Black women and white men has modestly increased from 1.1% in 1970 to 4.1% in 2000. Research also shows that Black women are overwhelmingly excluded as interracial dating partners, with one study showing that white men excluded Black women as dating options at 93%. Census data and interracial dating studies show a long-standing, persistent trend of Black women as an excluded heterosexual relationship partner for white men and other men of color. This trend exists in a study that today prides itself on color blindness. So we've all heard it before. Color blindness, yada, 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 yada. This is why I always say, lovely ladies, marry and date where you can, but we got to be kind of realistic about what's going on. Of course, there are, men out there, white men of other nationalities that will accept the right woman for open arms. And it doesn't matter the race she is, but there's plenty of men out there who that actually does matter. And in most cases today, most men across the board, no matter their ethnic group, would prefer to date and marry within their ethnic group. It just because they want women who look like them. That's natural. So instead of saying like, not to say you can't do it, but you got to be realistic about racial politics and how that actually does play into dating and mating, whether or not we want to believe it, especially in particular areas. Maybe more diverse areas or cities, you may see it not so in your face. But let's not act like this stuff don't exist, y'all. When we do that, then we're not being honest with ourselves, and we can actually get ourselves in trouble. Okay, then I continue. It says current research studies on interracial marriage decision on the current hegemonic race discourse often leads one to believe that racism exists only within the heart of a few bigots. Oh wait, did I already read that? Actually. Okay. Quantitative polls that measure racial attitudes of whites today show a marked decrease in racial hostilities. However, these polls do not account for the complexities of front stage and backstage racism. Front stage and backstage racism. Again, what's said in front of you versus what's said behind closed doors is different. Whereby whites manipulate racial performances for the settings that they are in. Shows so research by Pickett and Fegan 2007 shows that when in front stage settings are on people of color or in social settings where racism is politically incorrect, whites are more likely to engage in racial performances of color blindness. However, when in backstage settings or on other whites, these same whites are likely to express or engage racially discriminatory thoughts and behaviors. Yeah, this happens. Listen, this happens in all ways. Like, there's going to be a way that you talk when you're around a whole bunch of different Black folks versus when you in a mixed company or white folks. Code switch. Everybody does it to a certain extent. So they're just basically talking about how I guess white folks have their own way where they kind of code switch to make sure that they don't look racist. When in fact, some of them going to have deep racial ideologies and beliefs, but they just want to make sure they hide it. This is an interesting study. Y'all, this is from the University of Colorado Boulder. And I continue on. It says, to understand the phenomenon of Black women's consistent exclusion as relationship partners for white men, a critical theoretical assessment must be undertaken that debunks notions of color blindness and imperatively places race, intersects with gender and class as a focal point. It says this essay critically examines the integral role of race, gender, and class in the consistent exclusion of Black women as a relationship partner for white men. It says historically, let me see. Dominant and influential white men have constructed Black female bodies in race, gendered, and classed terms. Again, y'all, historically, dominant and influential white men have constructed Black female bodies in race, gendered, and class terms. This construction of Black female bodies has been that of sexual licentiousness, natural immorality, disease, animalism, prostitution, and masculinity, the opposite of hegemonic white femininity. Black women in the past and today are considered everything that a white woman is not in terms of beauty, sexual morality, femininity, and womanhood. Y'all, why is this important? The reason this is important is because, as been often stated and as has been often reinforced, is that, Black men are responsible for some of these different negative stereotypes that we see related to Black women. What we see in this particular study is that these pervading ideas and ideologies have not only have they been around for a very, very long time, they are deeply embedded in the system of racism that you live in as certainly as a Black American. And I found that particular section interesting because some of the things that are called out, or some of the different characteristics that are oftentimes given to Black men or attributed to Black men, we see in the study it's saying, no, this is actually a byproduct of living in a racialized system. This is actually something that is essentially based upon the system that white men, created, where white women are the standard of beauty. Duh, like not surprising, like any man is going to probably usually use a woman as a standard of beauty, and then anything that is any and everything is now going to be compared based upon that standard of beauty. So this kind of debunks the myth that, Black men are the most colorist. They're the ones destroying the image. They're the ones saying there were all these, bad, immoral, baby mama, whatever it may be. It kind of debunks that, because what we see is that these ideologies related to Black men are embedded in this system. These are common narratives, common tropes that have been going on for over and over again, and they continue to reinvent themselves in just newer generations. Now we have the Lizzos and the Cardi B's of the world, but they had mothers, they had great grandmothers, they had, they all kind of represent, in my humble opinion, they represent older tropes that have consistently been instituted, and I think reinforced by media, a media that, by the way, Black people do not control. So I saw that, and I thought that was interesting. And we continue on. Okay. Yeah, so Black women in the past and today are considered everything that a white man is not in terms of beauty, sexual morality, femininity, and womanhood. This global overarching construction of Black female bodies has persisted throughout society through pervasive race, sex, and class-dominant narratives and visual discourses, including controlling images of myths such as the Jezebel, Sapphire, Matriarch, Mammy, and Modern Mammy. Y'all, I get called Mammy every single day. Okay, oops, give me 1 second. I actually need to plug my battery, and it's about to die, y'all. Okay, sorry about that. I'm talking to y'all. My computer's about to die. So, gosh. Okay. All right. So, yeah, it says Mammy doesn't mean what they say it means. It means something different in that study. I'm completely aware. I know that they've kind of hijacked the term. It historically it's meant something different. Okay, so let's moving on to this. Let me see if I can try to skim through this. Okay, so it says due to elite white men's power to construct and control reality in such a way that it best maintains white domination of power and the general subordination of other groups, whites have effectively framed the ways in which everyday whites and people in general come to know, see, and understand Black women and society in general in race, gendered, and classed ways. This long-standing, historically constructed knowledge of Black women has become embedded in the deep frame of many contemporary white men. A deep frame represents our deep worldview and mental infrastructure of our mind, which consists of cognition, knowledge, emotions, and discourse used to make sense of our everyday world. The social construct of Black female bodies as an abject opposite of white women is an integral component of the deep frame of whites, as well as people of color, along with other racialized, gendered, and class elements. This is a knowledge base that informs contemporary white men's perception of Black women. So, guys, I mean, basically, it's pretty clear there, where it's like, look, y'all, this is construction that obviously is just a result of living in this racialized system, and that there are norms, there are ethos, pathos, there are beliefs, there are ideologies, emotions, conscious, subconscious, that are all associated with that. And to these day, white men essentially hold on to the narrative that was created, that essentially puts the white woman as a standard of beauty, and all women are compared to that. And Black women are they are basically portrayed as the polar opposite of that standard of beauty, which is why there are, historically have been negative portrayals of Black women, right? Of being sexually licentious, naturally immoral, disease, unhealthy, right? Sexually promiscuous, all those kind of different things. These are ideas that are deeply rooted in the system that we live in. And these ideas, even in a system that's supposed to be colorblind, they don't just go away. They're not hidden. They deeply live in some of the minds and hearts of men today. They're just hidden because we're supposed to be more politically correct. People don't speak on them, but behind closed doors, this is what they believe. So here, I think this actually breaks down the study. It says, I critically examine the deep frame of a contemporary white man utilizing open-ended online self-administered questionnaires. 134 white males ranging from the age of 18 to 50 and representing 38 states completed this in-depth online questionnaire. 44% of the respondents represent the Southern region, 20% the Northeast, 24% the Midwest, and 12% the Western region. Respondents tended to be educated and middle class, as 42% of respondents possess some college education, 30% a bachelor's degree, and over 48% of respondents were middle class. So, to be fair, this study, it's not like huge. I mean, he says it's what, just below 200, and it's online. So, you got to take that in, context. Anytime you're looking at, I think, these studies, it's important to really understand the methodology and what is it they take. So, take this with a grain of salt. Like I said, this was a smaller study, so I'm not going to say that this is 100% how things are, but I think it does give a good indication as to the way that men are thinking. And like I said, white men are thinking. And again, if you take this and you compare this with some of the different ideologies you are seeing online within the white men's, for the very least, or even if you just talk to men, you talk to black men and how they've interacted with other races of men and the things that other races of men have told them, and just plainly and clearly, I think it gives us black women understanding of what's going on. And also, the study does include peer-reviewed research methodology. It does include peer-reviewed research methodology. And I think, again, that is also important to know when you are looking at studies. So, okay, so I'm going to just see if I can just skim through the findings. And guys, I will link to this, so if you want to look at it in its entirety, you can get a sense. It breaks it down deep, though. It starts to look at, like, the black female body. It looks like the way that they would find features that may be considered more specifically black, African. However, let's see. Okay, let me see if I can get to the. Okay, so let's get to the attraction to brown-skinned white women. It says around 54% of white respondents describe themselves as physically attracted to black women, while 46% describe themselves as either rarely attracted to black women or not attracted to black women at all. Interestingly enough, respondents from the southern region describe themselves as attracted or rarely attracted to black women at virtually the same percentage as the overall research sample. It is important to note that while southern respondents were attracted to black women at a similar rate as other regions, respondents from certain states such as Texas and Tennessee were generally more likely to engage in racially inflammatory language and less likely to use colorblind discourse. This finding is representative of the historical difference in racial discourse interactions across region. So it's just giving a sense of how there's, essentially across regions, you're not seeing a huge difference as far as like who's attracted to who's not attracted to who. Let me see. It says those respondents that describe themselves as rarely attracted or having no physical attraction to black women were most likely to define the lack of attraction to black women in the following language: coarse or nappy hair, black facial features, big lips, wide noses, dark skin, and larger and disproportionate body shapes. Again, let me just repeat that. Those respondents that described themselves as rarely attracted or having no physical attraction to black women were most likely to define that lack of attraction to black women in the following language: coarse or nappy hair, black facial features, big lips and wide noses, dark skin, and larger and disproportionate body shapes. Those respondents that described themselves as attracted to black women stated that they were most attracted to black women's eyes, lips, and skin tone. So there was a small percentage of men within the study who were attracted to black women, but it was a very small minority. It says, however, some of the respondents that described themselves as attracted to black women stated that they were not attracted to black women with kinky hair, wide noses, and large body shapes. And some had preferences for black women with light skin and straight hair. Or there were some respondents that attempted to use colorblind language in describing physical attraction to black women, stating they found the same things physically attractive in black women as they did in white women, or that they see no color when it comes to physical attraction or interest in women. It says, as the research discussed earlier, black women are overwhelmingly excluded as dating and marriage options by white men, thus, despite the profession by some men as colorblindness. It says respondents that found black women unattractive or that they were rarely attracted to black women, and even some of those that found black women attractive, rooted that opinion in those traits defined as black traits. Again, the dark skin, kinky hair texture, full face features. Even those respondents that described themselves as attracted to black women limited that attraction to those black men with more white facial features and hair texture, thus invoking a discourse of racial comparison in which whiteness is the standard black woman's beauty is judged against. Gilbert, a lower class Coloradan in the 30s, described himself as attracted to black women, but a particular type. I am attracted to black women that fit my ideal petite body type and ones who are lighter skinned. His expression of being attracted to Black women who are of a lighter skin color elicits the long heralded notion that Black is only beautiful when it is synonymous with multiracial identity. Dylan, an upper middle class Texan over 50, was more direct, stating, I do find some Black women attractive, but they tend to have more white physical features and are polished, good grooming, dressed, athletic, professional. Alicia Keys comes to mind. Dylan specifically stated that possession of white features are what he believes make Black women attractive, and like many other respondents, offered Alicia Keys, who is multiracial, Black and white, as the ideal woman. So, I mean, y'all, this study goes pretty deep. Y'all, it goes pretty deep, but really basically what it's saying, what's it saying is you look at the study, because let me just do this because I do really need to wrap this up, y'all. Oh, that's the sources. If we just go down to the conclusion, because what it does, it starts to break it down, like I said, by preference. It looks at what are the attributes that white men and Black women do like, right? So we see there that some are like, okay, we just don't like Black women like that, and if we do like Black women, we like them if they have attributes that are closer to whiteness. And then here it talks about the more Black the masculine. Here it says whites have constructed Black features, including body shape, facial features, and hair as the didactic opposite of white features, a central component of the deep frame. Dating back to early European travelers in various African nations, whites have defined what they perceived as Black features in negative terms because femininity is heavily rooted in women's physical body. What is defined as a beautiful body becomes a mark of femininity, and what is defined as a beautiful body is rooted in a white woman norm. So again, it just breaks this down so cold. But what the crazy thing about this is, all of the things that Black men are accused of being colorist, accused of their preferences, accused of preferring white women, preferring women with European features. Every last one of the things that we see Black men being accused of, we actually find white men doing in this study. So if the argument is that Black men are the most colorist, therefore divest to white men, how are you going to divest to a community that created the structure that actually oppresses you? That doesn't make any sense. And that to me is what I found the most interesting about this study. Now, again, there were a few men in this study. There were a few men in this study who said that like their preference was Black women. Like there's one in particular who was like, hey, like I really like dark skin. He was a white guy. He's like, I really like dark skin. Like I love women who are like, they are open about their Blackness. They're not trying to like tone it down. They're not trying to do the weaves. Like, so that reference is in there. Like I said, I'm going to link this to the description because it's really interesting. But what we really find at the conclusion, because like I said, there were a few men in there who had outliers who preferred Black women, but majority of them said this. Conclusion, it says in this essay, the primary focus was to analyze, interpret, and probabilitize white male respondent physical and sexual attraction to Black women. The analysis reveals how white men respondents view Black women's bodies from the racialized, gendered, and classed deep frame. For many of the respondents, it is simply common sense or fact that white women are more attractive than Black women, that straight hair is better than kinky hair, that light or white skin is preferable to dark, that alkaline features are preferable to full, flat, or wide features, and that Black butts and body shapes are disproportionate. There is a section in that article that deals with the body shape of Black women. This essay also shows the complexity of the beauty standard. In contemporary society, fuller lips and fuller behinds are now more acceptable and in some instances are considered beautiful. Despite this complexity, whites, through appropriation and commodification, can control which features of the other will be considered beautiful and more acceptable, yet never with fear that it will elevate the Black woman's beauty above their own. Let me read that again. Despite this complexity, whites, though appropriation and commodification, can control which features of the other will be considered beautiful and more acceptable, yet never with fear that it will elevate the Black woman's beauty above their own. Of central importance is that data in this essay illustrates how old notions of Black women, constructed by the racialized observations and interpretations of early 16th and 17th century European travelers, scientists, and writers, are consistent elements in the deep frame or common sense worldview of white men today. although a minority of respondents expressed an attraction to Black women who were not brown-skinned white women, capable of meeting the white normative standard. This is atypical, as the integral power of the deep frame of white men often disciplines their thoughts, perceptions, emotions, and behaviors, and thus disciplines what they define as beautiful. So, really, y'all, at the end of the day, if we just sum it up, like we said, white people being the dominant society, however you want to put it, in America at the very least, they created this system, right? That we Black women, whatever, live in. And if you as a Black woman are trying to get incorporated within a white society, within a white community, with that framework, then it's important that you actually understand how they think, how they feel, what's going on. In this study, what it showed was that even though we supposedly live in a colorblind society, a lot of people behind closed doors still have these racialized views. Of course, this is not everybody. I, in my life, know people who are married interracially. We can all go to that. We can all go to those exceptions. But generally speaking, the ideology and the beliefs that established this nation and that established this system still live on in the hearts and the minds of many men today, of many white men today. Beliefs about what Black women are, what Black people are, but we're focusing on Black women, the beliefs about their beauty, what they do, what they cannot do, they are not the standard. And, and according to this study, the white men views white women as a standard. And everything after that point is now being compared to the standard of white beauty. Now, again, why is that important? Why is this important? Because a common narrative that we hear among women, right, is that Black men are the most colorist. Again, Black men are the ones that don't like the kinky hair and the natural hair and then the Black features. And because Black women don't like it, now go divest to another community. To which I ask, how are you now going to divest to a community that has made it clear that the standards that oppress you, they created? How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? It doesn't make any sense. It makes zero sense to me. That's what I'm saying, ladies. Please go where you are loved and celebrated. And of course, like I said, even in the study, we found men who were like, hey, you know what? Actually, I prefer Black women, or I prefer these features. So that does exist, but it's not the majority. It is not the majority. And if you do not believe me, that's fine. All you got to do is look at the results. We look at the results. We look at the Census Bureau. I talked about this not too long ago. It's about 1%, right, of white men who are marrying Black women nationwide. And if we just look across the board, the percentages are not that high. So even if you don't believe me, that's okay. All we have to do is just look at how people are marrying. And it's generally understood that people tend to want to date and marry in their ethnic group because men generally prefer women who share their complexion. That's just common sense. So again, if we go back to this idea that are Black men destroying the image of Black women because Black men are colorist and Black men are this and Black men don't like the way Black women are, they don't like their hair, they don't like their features, they're colorist, they have the preferences. I don't see certainly anything in this peer-reviewed study that suggests that. I see nothing. If you also look at, who's marrying who, we still know at the end of the day, within the Black community, if you're going to marry, you're more likely to marry a Black person, period. So if we look at who's marrying who, I think that kind of points to the narrative. Just like, no, I think Black love still is possible. And no, not all these men out here hating us. Now, why is this important? Again, I think when we start to, start to point fingers and start to want to blame and start to want to say that all these men are the problem, that all Black men are the problem, and we point women to other people groups who are going to be less inclined to accept us, that's where I'm like, this is a bad deal. This is a bad gig. This is a bad gig. It's simply false. It is just simply false. Like, you have the right to hold on to your narrative as a woman if you want to believe that, oh, I can be more loved and more accepted for who I am outside of the community that I come from. Okay, I mean, you have the right to believe that. But like I said, just be realistic, be honest. And more importantly, stop lying about this. I think one of the main things that's hurting us. Yeah, I heard you about that. One of the things that's hurting us, in my humble opinion, is just how we women are portrayed as far as like our reputations with our men. I think that's one thing that's really hurting our image. There's other things, like I said, there's certainly other ways that we can help try to improve this. But I think what's not going to help us, is if we continue as women to promote the idea that we can promote the idea that like men are the problem. That's not going to help us at all. Like, it's just simply not going to help us. So this is a lot. Now, this is a lot of information. I was trying to keep this quick, and there was just too much to cover off. But y'all, I'm gonna need to head out because I really do need to go finish this. I do need to go finish this edit. But like I said, at the end of the day, I'm gonna say this, y'all. It's just simply not true. It is not true, beautiful, dark-skinned Black woman. It's not true that your men hate you. Okay, it is not true that you're being oppressed by the system that Black men created, right? That they're the most color. Like, it's just not true, y'all. We got to stop the cap. This study literally says all of the stereotypes that us Black women are complaining about, all of the different things that we feel like are negatively impacted our women, are a result of this racist system that were set up by, racist people. That's literally what this says. And it says those beliefs today are still inherently held by different men and different white men within society. Some of them are open about it. Some of them are quiet about it, but it still lives on today. So we can't necessarily blame, like I said, we can't blame the results of this on men who didn't create it. And this isn't even necessarily this is not about, really trying to blame shift blame in general. I think we don't do ourselves good, I think, as women in general. We just sit around pointing fingers. This is just more about, like, you've got to be aware. You just got to be aware about what's going on. This is the reality, y'all. This is the reality. There's been multiple men who have told me in the comments, white dudes aren't checking for Black women like that. Literally, that's what this article says. That's literally what this article says. And it's not to say that you can't have hope. You, like I said, date, marry who you want, but just do it realistically. And at the end of the day, please stop lying about Black men. Please stop saying they're the ones destroying your image. They didn't make up this stuff. This stuff, like I said, these images that we were all trying to make has been going on for decades. A lot of this stuff, like I said, is just a new reiteration of beliefs about us that go back as far as the 16th century, as it literally says in this particular article. And we're not going to get out of this if we continue to point fingers and blame everything on men and say that they're the problem. We're not going to do that. There's no way. And I don't believe as Black women that we'll ever be able to improve our image in particular by separating from men who look like us and saying, okay, we're going to do this by ourselves. I don't know that that's ever going to work, because it hasn't. So anyways, y'all, this has been a lot. I'm all tired. I've got to go edit that video. So I just wanted to share this. Also, shout out to Chantel. I think she just shared my video. I appreciate you. Very, very much appreciate it. I feel like I've been rambling on. So anyways, y'all, check out that study. It has been a lot. Also, please show support to this channel. You can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Sade. Stay tuned. I have more content coming up. I have more lives, more conversations. And we'll talk later. Bye.